Hola, and welcome back to Generational. I'm your host, Gabby, and I'm back with my guest, Miles.
What's up, everybody? Hello again.
And today we're talking about the highly acclaimed 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice.
Honestly, one of the most famous stories of all time.
For real. And for a good reason. I loved it.
Absolutely.
It's a good story. The movie was great. I know some people like the miniseries a bit more, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't have enough time for a miniseries. So 2005 version for me. Um, and it has Keira Knightley, so I can't hate anything
Yeah,
with Keira
she's
Knightley.
great.
I know, I love her. All
Matthew
right,
McFadden,
I like him. I liked it. I've only seen him in this,
Succession Hive knows what I'm talking about. Yeah.
but I liked him in this. All right, so everybody should be familiar with the plot of Pride and Prejudice. Prejudice. Everyone should be familiar with the plot of Pride and Prejudice. If not, basically, best enemies to lovers story, 500,000 words, slow burn. Probably oldest enemies to lovers story too. It's probably
Absolutely,
like
yeah. Like
what
one of
is
the originals.
yeah, yeah. Oh God, everything on AO3. God, everything on AO3 and Wattpad has like slightly been inspired by Pride and Prejudice now. Now that I know that, it's like the domino effect of like how 9/11 made 50 Shades of Grey.
True. That is a wild TikTok theory. Yes.
It's not a theory. Like I'm pretty sure
No,
it's
I've
true.
seen, yeah,
Okay.
there's truth to it.
um, but yeah, it's basically following this young girl who's in her 20s, I believe, right at 20. Elizabeth Bennet, or Lizzie, and her five other sisters who need to marry a man to, get some money because their family is kind of poor. Um, but to be honest, like seeing how they live, seeing all the like people they had working for them, I was like, okay, they can't be that poor. Anyways, they are not as wealthy as everyone else around them. But their mom, Mrs. Bennet, matches them up with anyone she can get her hands on, which includes Mr. Bingley and Jane. Who I love Mr. Bingley. Shout out to my man, Mr. Bingley.
He's the greatest.
I loved him. And so Mr. Bingley moves near them, yada, yada, yada. She's like, oh my God, rich man, I have daughter.
Yes.
Classic old time business. And Mr. Bingley has his friend, Mr. Darcy, who at first everyone thinks is this, snob, thinks he's better than everyone else.
Yeah, and especially like since we each only have read the first five chapters of the book, like in those first five chapters, they make him seem awful
He does. But like at the same time I was watching it, I was like, he could just be shy.
and
Because I
just
feel like,
incredibly awkward.
yeah,
Yeah,
it seemed like even watching the, like, well, yeah, watching the movie, but also reading it, I was like, he just seems like he just doesn't like parties. That's all
yeah.
it is. Like, I feel like catch him any other time, he'll be fine. Like, I
Hmm.
literally, one of the first things I wrote when watching this movie was, oh, I think Darcy is just shy. And everybody's hating on him. He's just like, guys, I don't want to be here. Like, I literally, this is not my thing. But I did also hate, though, that he did come for Lizzie. He was like, oh, she's not good enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, he really sets himself up to be the bad guy,
He does.
like you said, the enemy turned to lover. And
Yeah.
like Lizzie starts off genuinely disliking him.
Because as she said, he can be prideful, but the moment he starts to like tarnish her pride, she's like, that's not
Hmm.
cool. Which, then again, everyone has a superiority complex. So, but yeah, it starts off they hate each other. Like they cannot stand to be in a room with each other, or so we think. Um, it's Lizzie hates him. She's like, I hate this man. I hate everything he stands for. Um, he won't even dance with her. What a jerk. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's goes through him and her. Just any moment they have is just immense tension.
Hmm.
Which you're like, this movie's PG
Yeah.
the whole time. But yeah, anytime they see each other, specifically, there's this one scene where she's leaving Mr. Bingley's house and they're holding hands, and he does the little hand flex thing that everyone on TikTok and Twitter and everything is talking about. Wow, that I could just like watch that scene like for 5 minutes, like just rewind it, and I'll be like, yeah, that's the entire movie right there.
I just want to say I think it's amazing that in the year of 2021 the TikTok kids have taken a scene from a 2005 movie based on a novel written in the 1800s and have fallen in love with it. And like the sentiment from the novel translated to the movie is still congruent with the sentiment that is being portrayed in the TikTok trend. You know, like it's like crazy how it was just modernized, you know, like I don't know, I think that's fascinating.
It is cool. I mean, it's just it's just poetry, you know? It's that
Absolutely.
good. And so, throughout the movie, we see obviously Jane's gotten her man, Mr. Bingley. Throughout most of the movie, you know, they're like, yeah, we're probably going to get engaged soon. So they're trying to get Darcy set up. So, first guy they try to set her up, Mr. Collins, their cousin.
What are you talking about, Liz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, did I say Darcy?
Yeah.
My B. They weren't that woke yet. So they try to get Lizzie set up with their cousin, Mr. Collins.
Who comes into the story to take over the estate. Yeah.
Because he's the next in heir. So when their dad dies, it goes to him.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, might as well marry one of the girls so that I guess we can keep this nice land.
And Mr. Collins states like basically from night one that was his intention. And he's like just laughably bad at it. It's like, awful.
They literally say something in the movie. They're like, is everything you do rehearsed? And he's like, no. Here's another rehearsed line. But it's kind of, it's just he's very awkward and, you know, very socially inept. So they have a little, I wouldn't say thing because it's really one-sided. He's just like,
absolutely
he
one-sided.
Wanted Jane at first.
He did, yeah.
Like, well, she's about to get wed. So he's like, all right, I guess Lizzie will do. And then like later in the movie, he's like, when I first saw you, you were the one I wanted. And I'm like, okay.
He's just trying to get a wife any way he can, you know?
And he was like, so we're cousins. It's perfect. I'm like, oh. This is England, not Alabama, guys. And so the next man we see is when they go into town. It's one of the soldiers. Yeah. I don't know why I wanted to say
during the parade.
Yeah. Mr. Oh my God, what is his name? Mr. Wickham. And who at first I literally wrote down, like, I was like...
Did you notice, like, before we even meet him, they zoom in on him, like, in the parade?
Oh, no,
they,
I didn't notice that.
It's like a little slow-mo scene. They pan on the girls, and then it pans to some soldiers, and then, like, as he's walking by, it goes into, like, half-cut slow-mo of his, like, beautiful long hair and pretty skin.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. I did write, Mr. Wickham is fine, too. Dang.
Yeah, you probably wrote that down at the moment I'm describing. Yeah.
Well, it was when he showed up, and I was like, okay, he seems nice. And then,
well, I think they do that to like set it up as like because you know
they want Mr. Darcy to be the villain of this, and he's like, Mr. Darcy wronged me. Me and his father, we were best buds. I was like his second son, and he promised me money, and Mr. Darcy didn't give it to me. And I was like,
well, and I think he's the prettier version of Mr. Darcy. I know that like there's a legion of people that think Matthew McFadden is good looking, but like they don't portray Mr. Darcy as like an attractive guy. You know, I think Mr. Wickham is supposed to be that like the flip side of the coin to Darcy, you know, in a way.
Yeah. Which we'll talk about this god-awful remake later in 2016, but there's the Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, which, you know, it's the exact same story, just for some reason, like, yeah, we should you know, make it World War Z for fun.
Well, I think that was like at the height of like the Walking Dead craze, and
I guess it was like 2016.
Z Nation, yeah.
So, anyways, the Mr. Wickham in that movie at first, for like the first 10 minutes you see him, you're like, he's a good guy. And then after that, I don't know if it's just, I just already just trust Mr. Wickham, but he just like obviously was not a good guy. He was like, come here to the secret location where there's no zombies, I promise. And then there were zombies. I was like, what is this? What did they do to my poor Pride and Prejudice? But anywho, you're thinking, oh my God, Mr. Darcy wronged Mr. Wickham. How could he? Mr. Wickham is like so awesome.
And that's the thing that like really turns Elizabeth away from Darcy. Yeah. Because like I feel like at that point she's starting to question whether she like actually hates him or just like hates him so much that she likes him. When Wickham tells her that kind of like seals the deal for her, at least until, you know, she sees him again.
Yeah. which the next time they see each other is at the ball that Mr. Bingley holds for Jane and all of her other sisters. Now that Jane is, well, which early in the movie she was ill because her mom made her ride on a horse in rain so she could stay with Mr. Bingley for like a week. Which, wow, what, you know what? That is a true, what are they called?
The mother had a mission,
She did. She was
A
like,
helicopter parent, I
yeah,
think is the
she had
term
like
you're looking for.
a
Yeah,
plan set out.
absolutely, she did.
I, that's kind of iconic. I'm not gonna lie.
Kind of crazy in my opinion, but I get, yeah. She was wanting the best for her girls. We'll put it that way.
She was, but like,
Even at their
dang.
own chagrin. I
Yeah.
mean, back then a common cold could kill you, and she was like, "No, just go ride in the rain. You'll be fine." And then her daughter was sick for like a week, and
What a wing woman,
right?
Yeah.
I guess.
Like I said, iconic. Um, so they're at this ball now that Bingley is holding for everyone at his, I want to say estate. It's at Mr. Bingley's place.
Yeah.
And Mr. Collin is there, tries to dance with Lizzie. Very awkward. He's very, let's just say, into it, I think.
Yeah,
He
and
was,
that's when they have the conversation, right? Like when they're dancing, and he just like stops dancing to be like, "Will you marry me?"
no, it was later when they went to the dinner. And he's like,
Oh,
can I
you're
speak to
right.
Lizzie
You're
alone?
right. You're right.
And she's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, please don't leave. But yeah, he is very awkward there. And then,
Very forward.
yeah,
I think
and
is
then
the proper word. Yeah.
Mr. Wickham wasn't there. And they're like, why isn't he here? And they're like, oh, he got sent off to some mission, what else? And so they're walking. I'm like, oh my God, where is he? And they bump into Mr. Darcy. Oh my God, I love that scene.
That was
When
a
it
good
just
one.
Hands up to him. I was like, oh my God, it's my man. Because deep down, I knew he was going to be good at the end because I've seen all the TikToks. So I was like, yes, let's go. It's like, when how all those like fanfics start out, they're like, oh no, we only have one hotel room.
How is this gonna end up
I know.
good? Yeah.
So it was like, finally, moving on. And so they dance, and like during the whole dance, she's like, aren't you gonna say something like rude and snobby to me? And he's like, I guess I can. I don't know what you want me to say. And there's this cut that I wrote down about too, where it cuts and they're the only people in the room, and it's supposed to be like they like feel like the only people in the room. I was like, wow, that's poetry. What did I say? Yeah, I said I'm gonna use PG words. Dang, that cut to when they were alone. Wow, that's all I said. I was also, let me just state this, during this whole movie, my back had like a muscle spasm, so I was writing while like in pain, but at the same time, I was like, I love this movie.
Just heightened emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It was not a fun night, but like, I still love the movie. But yeah, it was like this whole dance, and you can just feel like the tension, and I'm just like, wow, this movie is so good. I literally just kept wanting to write, this movie's so good, this movie's so good. Same way as I did with the other one. I was like, this movie's awful, I hate this, I hate everything this movie stands for. So I believe after the ball scene, they go back home, and then that's when Mr. Collins proposes to Lizzie, and she doesn't want to marry him, and her mom's like, come back, no, she'll change her mind. And the mom's like, if you don't marry him, I'll never talk to you again. And she got Mr. Bennett to help her try and get with Mr. Collins, and he's like, and if you do marry him, I'll never talk to you again. And she's like, thank you, Papa.
Mr. Bennett was a G through and through.
Yeah.
I mean, Donald Sutherland is just one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. He's the best.
I only know him from Hunger Games as, was it President Snow?
Yeah.
Man, I need to rewatch this movie soon. Anywho, let's see. After they propose, what happens? Doesn't Bingley leave? I think because Darcy
He goes.
gets him to.
Well, that's.
We don't know why he left yet.
Yes, but yeah.
Mr. Bingley leaves.
He moves to London, right?
To go, because Darcy wants to go be with his sister, and Mr. Bingley goes with him. There was something. It was like someone was gonna get married too. I can't remember who, but
I think the rumor was that Darcy was trying to set Bingley up with his sister.
Gotcha. But she was like so young too.
Yeah, but I mean, so what's his name? The one Wiccan.
With a 15-year-old.
I mean, he broke her heart, So I don't think age was like super important back then, which is weird.
I don't think so either.
To say now, but that's just the times, It was.
And so, then when we find out when Bingley is gone, obviously Jane's upset because she was like, "That was my husband." we find out that Mr. Collins, Lizzie's cousin, just a reminder, gets married to her friend Catherine, I believe, who we don't
Mm-hmm.
really see that much in the movie.
No, apparently she has a bigger role in the book too.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's just for book lovers to be like, oh, I know
Yeah,
Catherine, good old Catherine.
there she is.
Yeah. They get married, and then Lizzie goes to visit Mr. Collins and now his wife Catherine, Mrs. Collins, and they want to go visit Mr. Collins' sponsor. Is that what they called her, Lady Catherine?
Yeah.
Or what was her name?
The Dame Judi Dench is the
Yeah.
actress, legend, absolute legend. I forget the character's name though.
I want to say
Give me a
Lady
second.
Catherine, but I don't want to.
I got IMDb pulled up.
Gotcha. Gabby, you can edit this part out.
Lady Catherine de Bois.
Okay. What was her friend's name? Was it also Catherine or was it something else? There can't have been two Catherines, right?
Was it Betsy?
Maybe. Is her last name Collins?
No.
I mean, dang. That really shows how small of a role she has.
Exactly, yeah. Anywho, yeah, I mean,
We'll just call her Lizzie's friend.
Exactly, yeah.
I think, well, I thought it was Catherine. It turns out I was
You
wrong.
might be thinking of Caroline Bingley,
Maybe.
Bingley's sister.
Oh, wait, no, it wasn't Caroline Bingley.
Who?
Because that was the girl that was kind of stuck up, who's like, did she walk here? She's got mud all the way up her britches.
She plays a great character on Yellowstone.
How do you know so many factoids? It's crazy.
I love Yellowstone. Just a little aside, great show. Go watch. All of it's on Peacock right now. Yeah.
Gotcha. I just got Peacock again because one, Prime Prejudice, and two, all the Harry Potter movies are back on there. But anywho, oh my god, I get distracted so easily. They go and visit his, I guess, sponsor, Lady Catherine. And it turns out Mr. Darcy is her nephew.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Darcy is there with his other friend. I forgot his name, but we'll just call him Mr. Darcy.
And the sister.
Yeah, and the sister. Was the sister there?
Remember, yeah, because when they run into each other, Lizzie's watching the sister play piano.
That wasn't that yet. That's when they're at.
See, all
Mr.
this shit
Darcy's
seems
estate.
the same to me. Sorry. You're right.
You're good.
Yeah.
It does kind of mesh in together, those two scenes, because they are very samey. But that's there where Lizzie finds out Mr. Darcy broke up Jane.
Yes.
Because his friend was like, we're here because he just helped a good friend break off an awful marriage that was going to happen. She's like, oh my God. And so she goes running in the rain, and Mr. Darcy follows her. And she's like, what do you want with me? And he's like, I wish for you to end my agony. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I love you. Ardently, most ardently. I was like, oh my God. I saw it coming, but oh my God. And yeah, basically, though, his first proposal was, I know your family's trash and you're trash, but I love you. So you want to get married? I don't know why he thought that was going to work. She was like, obviously no.
It's like, I think you're way beneath me, but I respect that.
Yeah.
And I can look past that.
I want to marry you to humble myself.
Yeah.
Which,
Not a good thing.
I do like the I love you most ardently line, though. That was a good line.
Just a good adjective.
Yeah.
Adjective is all that is.
I've seen people get that tattooed on themselves. I love you most ardently.
Wow.
I think his second proposal is better. So, but we'll get to that. I need to stop getting ahead of myself. And she's like, I don't want to marry you. First of all, I know you broke up Jane and Bingley. Second of all, I know what you did to Mr. Wickham, which was not let him have his money that your dad was going to give him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. And then, like, as this scene's playing out, they're just naturally getting closer and closer. And they're, like, looking at each other's lips, and you're like, oh my God, are they about to kiss? And then they go away. I'm like,
Dang it.
I would have hit this table, but I don't want to break it or scratch it up or anything. And then Darcy decides to write her a letter as he's leaving, just explaining everything. He's like, I'm sorry. I thought their marriage was going to be doomed. I thought you were just, like, she was just going after him for his money because Jane was just shy. That's all it was.
Yeah.
She's like, she's just shy.
Well, and the mother was very forthcoming about the fact that she was trying to marry into money.
She was, but it didn't seem like Jane was trying to do
No,
that.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It looks like Jane and Bingley just really liked each other. It just so happened to be Bingley's, like, a millionaire in their time. And
Which
then
was
he
like
was like,
50,000 pounds, wasn't it?
I think
Yeah.
so. And then, but Mr. Darcy had like double that.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody in the book, they were like, "Oh my God, we love Mr. Darcy," and then he was like, "I'm not gonna dance," and they're like, "We hate Mr. Darcy." It was such a turn. um, but what was that? Oh yeah, and then he's like, in about Mr. Wickham, it's actually like the other way around. He took all the money. My dad left him, gambled it, and then came to ask me for more, and I said no. And then he tried to get with his little sister, who was
Who
like
was
15.
15.
Yeah, and he almost like married into it to get her wealth, but luckily Mr. Darcy like talked her out of it.
Well, no, he says that once he found out that he wasn't getting any of the endowment that the sister had, he left the next
Oh,
day
did he?
unannounced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe in the zombies movie they're like, I talked her out of it.
Nah. Yeah. In the original story, yeah, in the movie, he leaves when he finds out he's not getting the money. So that shows
Yeah.
you Wickham's true character, which and they still romanticize one of the sisters marrying him after
I know.
they've
I
like
was like, I
made
feel
him
like,
seem bad.
yeah. I was like, that's kind of a little weird.
She seems happy.
Yeah, I guess so. I saw people saying though, like Wickham's like 10 times worse in the book too.
Yeah.
Um. So after that, Mr. Darcy's gone, Bingley's gone. Lizzie goes with her aunt and uncle, I believe, who are going to see Mr. Darcy's house, like his estate, which it's beautiful, by the way. Like,
Huge.
I loved all the statues.
Huge.
The day after I watched that movie, we went to the Lightner Museum in St. Augustine, and we're looking at all the marble statues, and Mom's like, "This is like Mr. Darcy's house." I was like, "There's no Mr. Darcy here. I don't want to be here."
When they get to the bust form of Mr. Darcy, I thought it was like she was imagining his face on a
Oh,
different
really?
statue
It
at
is a little
first.
weird to have a statue of yourself.
Well, I
But
mean,
I mean,
kind of
it is,
not
I
really.
guess, for
It's
that
just like a
time.
portrait, in that
Yeah.
time. But and like for the most wealthy, that's what they got done instead of getting paintings of themselves done.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just love marble statues. And the one that had like the lady with the veil over it, I just gotta admire the artwork because it's so cool how they make marble look so soft and like flimsy. It's just, I love like that in art museums. Those are my favorite parts. Anywho, she's there, and then they're talking about Mr. Darcy's sister, and then it cuts to Lizzie like looking around, and she sees Mr. Darcy's sister playing the piano. Which I forgot to mention this when they were at Lady Catherine's place, they were making Lizzie play the piano. She's like, "I'm not good," and Lady Catherine was like, "Practice will make perfect."
That was like the first time her and Darcy really flirt with each other.
Yeah,
Before she finds
kinda.
the bad stuff out about him.
Yeah.
That was like when he walks over to the piano and is like trying to comfort her while she's playing bad, which she was playing a song, which to me is pretty good, even
Yeah.
though she was hitting like off notes and stuff.
She was hitting keys. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I've used to play piano, and it's pretty hard to like get your hands everywhere. It's like you have to press a key over here and over here at the same time. So
But I think I want to touch on like how Lady Catherine, right? Yeah, Judi Dench's character was really talking down on Elizabeth and her family because none of her sisters were like taught in the arts, which was something that was like what ladies were supposed to do back then. I think that was like meant to, like, in the original version, I think that was meant to be a dig, like I think Jane Austen there is trying to in some way like comment on the socioeconomic status of the time. Outside of the whole relationship stuff, it's the fact that like women weren't even allowed to do any kind of I mean, that's just like, obvious for the time, but the only things they were allowed to do was like the arts. And then if they didn't do the arts, they just were hardly seen as a woman. I thought that really stuck out to me.
And it also calls back to when Mr. Darcy was talking about in another scene, like the qualities he wants in a woman.
Exactly,
He's
yeah.
like, she's got to be good at this and this and this, and like you see where it comes from. There was also a line in that scene where he's like, "I'm not good at talking to strangers," and Lizzie's like, "Well, why don't you do what your aunt says and practice?"
Yeah.
Like, kind of digs at him. And then one of the like following scenes, he just busts into the house that she's in, and he's just standing there, and he's like, okay, bye.
Yeah, and on YouTube there's like an 11-minute video of just awkward scenes from
I
Pride and
was watching
Prejudice.
that at
Yeah.
school earlier. That's what
It's
made me
like
think of it.
11 minutes of Mr. Darcy being awkward.
Yeah,
It's pretty
literally in that
funny.
scene, they put the little error thing on it, and then it's just like, sit down, and it's like error, error, error. And man, I just think he had like awful social anxiety, and that's all it
Absolutely.
is.
And he was just absolutely infatuated with Liz at that point because she had like stood up to him, showed her true colors, showed like actually how intelligent she was, and like how she believed that she didn't necessarily need to do all the ladylike things to be a true woman of the time. And I think that's what really appealed to Mr. Darcy, you know?
Yeah. So where were we at? They're at his estate with his sister playing the piano, and then you see Mr. Darcy come into frame. And then she's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you were here." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm back from London. Whatevs, I'm here." He didn't say that verbatim. He didn't say whatevs in the movie. Don't worry. But anyways, the sister's like, "Oh my God, you're Lizzie. He's talked so much about you." And he's probably like, "Oh my God." Debbie Ryan thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a sweet scene. I don't think there's much to it other than that. Just they're practicing piano. She meets his sister. His sister's real sweet. And it's like, it kind of shows his true colors a bit because it's like he's so happy with his sister.
Well, no, I don't think because they get invited back, right?
Maybe.
Like because remember she walks in on the sister practicing and they lock eyes through the doorway and then she runs out.
She runs out and then.
And they talk on the terrace and then he offers to take her back to town and she says, "No, I'll walk." And then like a day later, they get a letter inviting them over for dinner, right? Wanting to hang out.
No, he takes like the aunt and uncle out and they're like, "We just talked to Mr. Darcy." And that's kind of soon. I think she gets a letter or something, and they find out Lydia's gone with Mr. Wickham. And we find out he's asking for like $10,000 for the wedding. And then it just mysteriously happens. You're like, how did that happen? Because we know the Bennets are poor.
Yeah.
And it's later found out, spoilers, that Mr. Darcy.
Good old Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Darcy came through, gave out $10,000, which was probably like.
That's a lot of money for back then. I mean, that's like equivalent to, I don't know, close to $100,000 now. Yeah.
Dang. And then we see that Mr. Wickham's back, and I was just like, why is he here? Like, and then it's just like, I feel like it's gonna be so awkward at future family reunions for them.
Absolutely.
But and then I think shortly after, Mr. Bingley comes back, and he's like, "I wish to talk to Jane alone," and they get back together.
Of course, yeah.
There's this cute little scene of Bingley like practicing, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, and then like when they're talking in the room, the sisters are behind the door. That's like a recurring thing.
Yeah, they always do that.
The sisters are always listening.
And then, so obviously with Bingley comes back Mr. Darcy, and what happened? Because does Mr. Darcy go anywhere between that? Does he leave? I think he's like leaving the next day. And then Lizzie gets a visit from Lady Catherine, who's like, "I heard you were to be engaged with my nephew." And she's like, "No."
Yeah, where'd you hear that?
Yeah. And she's like, "Well, is it true?" She's like, "I mean, no, I don't think so." She's like, "Good, because you're beneath him. You're beneath me," and all that. I'm like, Jesus. Don't say that to Keira Knightley.
Judi Dench plays the best mean old woman.
And then it was weird. In the Zombies movie, it was like a young lady.
Really?
It was like Lady Catherine. And then she ended up being nice. I was like, what the heck is this?
No.
She's like, "I love the Bennets." I was like, no, you don't. Stop lying to yourself. And then after that, one of the best scenes in the movie, you see Lizzie going out for a walk. It's like sunrise. And then you see Mr. Darcy walking, slow motion. First few buttons of his shirt undone. Sorry. Kind of build up visual. And he's like, "I don't know if you feel the same way as you do in April, but if you do, just say one word and I'll stop." And then he does his famous, "You've bewitched me mind, body, and soul. I love, I love, I love you." I was like, oh my God. If someone doesn't propose to me like that, I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to break it off. If they just go, "Will you marry me?" I'm going to be like, sorry, no. Try again in April. Or try again. If it's in April, I'll be like, try again in a few months.
Yeah.
Word for word, verbatim. No, just kidding. But they or Lizzie goes back to tell him, she's like, I'm getting married to Mr. Darcy, but she hadn't been keeping our family in the loop. They're like, I thought you like hated that guy. Like you
Yeah.
were gonna like kill him. And she talks to her dad. She's like, you don't know what he's done. He paid for the wedding. He got Jane and Bingley back together. But don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
So, anyways, they get married. And then they have that little sappy scene that only Americans can see.
Yeah.
Where he's like, and what should I call you? Or no, he was like, when should I call you Mrs. Darcy? She's like, when you are truly and utterly happy or something. And he's like, so how do you feel, Mrs. Darcy? And that's how the movie ends. So, yeah.
It was a good cutaway. I love a
It
good
was.
like statement ending. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we get a definitive. That's the end of that
Yeah.
story. There are continuations to Pride and Prejudice, though.
There
More
are.
stories about the sisters. Yeah,
Oh, really? But it doesn't expand on like Darcy and
I'm pretty
Lizzie,
sure
right?
it doesn't. Yeah.
Okay, good. I feel like that was a good ending to their
Yeah.
story. I'd hate if they're like later down the line, they're like, Darcy and Lizzie got a divorce and now she has 12 kids and doesn't know what to do.
No, 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 no.
But yeah, oh my lord. That movie just, I did like almost cry during his second proposal. I could feel my eyes watering up. It could also be because I was in immense back pain. Because when I watched this movie, I was in an Airbnb and the beds were like hard as rocks. And I was like, oh my lord. It was a fun stay. It was a lovely movie. And I'm glad I watched it. I'll probably read the book because I always do it in
You
reverse.
should definitely read the book,
I never read the book and then watch the movie.
and
I
you
always
should
watch the movie, then read
become
the book.
very familiar with Jane Austen.
I
I
should.
can't believe you don't know. Like this is your entry to her.
Yeah, we had Miles yelled at me before we started.
I did not
recording,
yell.
and I
It's
started
just a
crying. He
strong.
literally started screaming at me. You're dumb.
It's
You're
a
stupid.
it's a strong misunderstanding because
No.
Gabby loves this movie dearly, but there's so many like other in my opinion better versions of Jane Austen stories told through film that would be awesome.
They would.
Specifically Greta Gerwig's Little Women. That is just a
That's one I wanted to watch in Emma with Anna Taylor-Joy.
absolutely.
Because I've never seen the trailer and I was like, oh my god, this looks
And the
hilarious.
original little not the original from the 40s or 50s, but like the 1995 Winona Ryder Little Women, fantastic.
But yeah, I love this movie. I usually don't like romance movies. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, this was a curveball. When you suggested this one, I was
Yeah.
like,
After The Witch. And
Yeah.
then I was like, now watch this one.
yeah. Which, I mean, who's not familiar with Pride and Prejudice? So I knew how, the shakes of the story, and I've seen parts of the movie. Like it's definitely like a rewatchable. If you walk in on this scene, I'll almost sit down and finish it. But I'd never seen it from very beginning to very end. And honestly, I won't lie to you, Gabby. It wasn't like my favorite love story. I love a good like enemies to lovers, and this is the first one. So like this is like this isn't the first movie like that. But Pride and Prejudice as a story is one of the first true enemies to lovers thing. And I don't know, it just didn't really grab me. I think I was so out of it because of the Matthew McFadden thing. Like, I just can't explain enough how much his role in Succession ruined him as Mr. Darcy for me because, like, I knew going into it that Mr. Darcy was supposed to be, like, the it guy, right? But, man, he plays such a dork, honestly,
Maybe
in
you should watch
Succession.
the miniseries with Colin Firth.
Yeah, see, I do love Colin Firth.
Yeah, no one can hate Colin Firth.
No, he's a great one.
You know what's funny is the first movie I ever saw Colin Firth in was Mamma Mia.
It's a great way to get initiated to the guy.
Yeah.
Mamma Mia is fantastic.
And that's like my favorite movie of all time. I love Mamma Mia. But yeah, I know this is very off topic, but have you ever heard the people saying that Mamma Mia in the Bible are somewhat similar?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of the-
the creation story and
Yeah.
everything.
I thought that was funny. Anywho, man, it really did throw me for a twist because I was like, I don't know if I'll like it. I hate romance stories, and especially like rom-coms. I know this isn't a rom-com, but
But like, what drew you to it? Do you think? Is it like the idea of
Probably-
Mr. Darcy?
I think so. And it's just, I'm not gonna lie, TikTok really made me watch it. I know people are probably tired of me talking about TikTok or whatever, but it is a powerful tool to get me to do things. Because
Yeah.
I saw that scene with the hand flex, and I was like, I got to see what everyone's talking about. And they were talking about the second proposal, and I'm like, I have to know what this is.
Just that FOMO,
Yeah, TikTok is the reason I watched all the Harry Potter movies because everybody was talking about them like over this like beginning of August. I'm like, what is everyone talking about? I have no idea.
I started Harry Potter just to get on Harry Potter tangent because I love it. I started watching Harry Potter because my favorite podcast was starting to do deep dives. Favorite
Mhm.
podcast of all time is a podcast called Binge Mode,
Mhm.
and they do just deep dives on, like, they started Game of Thrones, then they did Harry Potter, and then Star Wars. But the Harry Potter deep dive was just fantastic, and I had I had read, I think I read Goblet of Fire just
Mhm.
like randomly because all my friends were reading it. It was the most recent one to come out when I was like in fifth, sixth grade,
Mhm.
because I remember when the books came out. You know, I'm old enough
Wow,
to
you're like
remember that.
ancient.
Yeah, and I went to a lot of the movie premieres, but like I was never really a part of the fandom.
Mhm.
I became a Harry Potter fan in such a late age. It was like a strange experience for me, but that's just my 2 cents on Harry.
Harry Potter's
He's
made
trying to get canceled, though, or you know,
J.K.
J.K.
Rowling.
Rowling's getting canceled, but
Yeah,
that's a story for another day.
it is.
But let me ask you another question about Pride and
Mhm.
Prejudice. What did you connect most with Liz?
I don't know. I
Like,
just
I don't know. Because for you to say that Midsommar and The Witch are some of your favorite movies of all
The Witch
time.
isn't like my favorite movie of all
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
It's
But you love Ari Aster movies, and this is like the polar opposite of
it
that.
is.
So I'm fascinated as to why you have
Well,
an affinity for this one. And outside of the TikTok thing, you have
mhm.
to resonate with some of the characters. There has to be something that's like grabbing you and speaking to you on like a deeper emotional level outside of you wanted to know what it was about, right? Like
Mhm.
or else you would have just watched the movie and then you just have now seen Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
Like you wanted it to be on this show for a reason. What is that reason?
I don't know. I want to say maybe. Well, let me start with saying the reason I love Ari Aster is because the way he does his movies, like he literally has like a plan, like the
Well, yeah,
entire
of
thing
course,
written out in the script.
that wasn't meant as like a dig. It's just
No,
like
no, no. I was just
the oppositeness of it all
it
is
is.
what's interesting in
I
like the story,
I do like the stories, especially like Midsummer, just because I
Yeah,
saw it at a good time to see it. Like a guy had just canceled on a plan we had, and I was like, man, I'm so sad. At least I'll go see Midsummer. And I walked out like, dang, I feel like that was the best movie to watch at that time. But oh my god, I don't know what it is. I feel like a lot of romance movies these days just don't do it for me. I
yeah.
don't know, just because like
Well, you don't
I
really
don't
see
know.
a good like. I mean, everything's got a rom com around it. I mean,
Uh
and honestly, rom coms are mid now. We haven't really had a good
mhm
one since like 2010, 2011. I would,
mhm
romantic movies, serious romantic movies aren't
as like
as romanticized now.
mhm
They're more suggestive and like, rated R adult, and
mhm.
it deals with those themes more so than just like a traditional love.
I guess that's what I liked about this one because it was just so like I'm used to seeing the
It's a
very
classic,
explicit
yeah.
and stuff. It was just very sweet and very wholesome. And I do really like the dialogue and I really like how it builds the tension between them
Mm-hmm.
and how like after he says that he likes her, like you can go and pick out like all the times that they're together. You're just like, oh, he just likes her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember how someone pointed out like after she said dancing was the way to the heart. You later see him. The next time she sees him, he asks her to dance,
Absolutely.
and then the whole like practice speaking, and then he goes to go talk to her, and he can't say anything. It's very, I don't know, and it's so weird because I'm on such a I hate men tangent, and
Well,
at the same
and
time,
I think it has a lot to do with Jane Austen is one of the most popular female novelists and popular novelists just in general among women, especially, in their teenage years.
mm-hmm,
So like the age you're at, Jane Austen has always appealed since she first published these novels to girls your age, right? So like
mm-hmm,
I think that even today her story can resonate with people of your age because it tells the fantastical stories of like how you want love to be, how
mm-hmm,
like you envision adult love to be a lot of the times because it's so like fantastical almost and like so picture perfect that like it's almost unreal. I mean, it is a
mm-hmm,
story at the end of the day and it's meant to feel like that. I personally, I think I enjoyed the movie because to say that it wasn't like my favorite romance movie is not a knock on the movie. I think I
mm-hmm,
just didn't care for like I was seeing the beats, because I
mm-hmm.
I just understand how movies tick along. So I felt like I had an understanding of that. But outside of that, I really love how she's able to like comment on things within the social structure of that time period, because that was really, she was like shunned for that at first. Like she had problems publishing her novels because she was commenting on things that not a lot of people were commenting on for the time. And I don't know. I think that's really cool. One, that it was a woman doing that back then, and two, that like these were like the first like real novels told through a woman's eyes, like popular in pop culture for that time. Like I don't know. I'm not a woman's history major by any means, but like I think that Jane Austen is pivotal to a lot of people.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I don't know. It's just I don't know what it is. I was talking to like my other classmates too, because I was talking about how I was gonna be doing this podcast. I was like, yeah, because I was telling my teacher, because she loves Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
I was like, guess what I watched? Pride and Prejudice. And this girl, or one of my friends, was like, oh my god, I hated that movie. I just hate Mr. Darcy. He's such an a-hole. And she was like, I mean, by the end of the movie, I guess he's good. And I'm like, but that's the thing. It's like he changed. And like, you don't, I don't know.
Well, I think everybody at some point wants to feel like they had a helping hand in changing somebody, and like
Yeah.
we directly see Liz change Darcy.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is. I just,
That's something to think about, I guess. I'm glad I posed that question because I can see I got you
now I'm
thinking.
thinking about it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. I really did love the dialogue too. It did feel like a lot of it was taken from the book. Like
Absolutely,
I can't say much
yeah.
of it because I only read the first 5 chapters, but um, it did. It felt very straight from the book. Nothing was changed. Although I know a lot was changed because it's a movie based off a novel. Something's bound to get cut or.
I think there's just a lot more detail about like the specifics of the functions and the day to day between like the sisters and Darcy and his buddy. I think there's just like more specifics in the story. I think the main gist, they don't like change any plot points
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah. Man, it's just so good. And then I should probably talk about like the nominations and stuff it got for. So it was up for like Academy Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role, Keira Knightley, and then for Best Costume Design, Best Music, Best Production, and the costuming was awesome too. I know a lot of people have been like, "Oh, it's not like real historically accurate," but still, it was beautiful costume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I know people can't see me, but I tried to rock a corset today because I was
In honor of the movie.
yeah. And these are just some stuff I wrote down, but this was actually like the director's first movie to ever direct.
Really? Wow, I didn't know that.
And he's also done Atonement and Darkest Hour.
Atonement's great, yeah.
I haven't seen Atonement.
Of course.
Probably should.
Yeah.
Did you say of course?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Well, I mean, it's no. It's just, it's an older movie.
No, I thought you were meaning of course because I haven't seen like anything.
Well, that is also true, but
Yeah.
no, yeah.
Trust me, I've seen a bunch of crappy horror movies because I was bored when I was like 12 and during the summer. But anywho, what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and it also won a BAFTA for outstanding debut by a British writer, director, producer. But yeah, it's just so good. And like, I'm now gonna hate on its other version, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, because they massacred.
Yeah, we can end with kind of making fun of this one for a little bit.
All right, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, same thing. They just
Yeah,
felt like
I suggested this to you, right? I've
Yeah.
never seen it. I just remember when it came out and thought it would be a hilarious little tangent since it's literally the same story but with zombies.
I don't know. I say this like ever since I watched this movie, which was like not that long ago. I watched it during my last class, but I was like, who saw Pride and Prejudice and went, you know what this is missing?
Zombies.
And it's just it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They massacred it. Literally, like my first thing I said is, why did they do my man Darcy like that? Because he was so in. First of all, now I can only picture this one guy as Mr. Darcy. I know you can't see him as Mr. Darcy as this amazing guy because of what was it, Secession?
Yeah.
But now I can only see him as Mr. Darcy or Colin Firth because I know he plays him and I love Colin Firth. But it was this guy, and he couldn't do like a deep voice like this guy could. So the whole movie's like, "Hello, Lizzie," and I was like, "Oh my god, what is this?" And Elizabeth Bennet was played by Lily James, who was in the second Mamma Mia movie as Diane, or what, Donna.
Donna,
I was gonna
yeah.
call her Diane. Donna. So I'm like, girl, what are you doing? You can do so much better. Also, Matt Smith was in this, but I'm not gonna. I actually really liked his character as Mr. Collins because I could tell he was having fun with it. He was, over the top, silly.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like almost his character could have been placed in the original Pride and Prejudice. It was just he just had a fun time with it. Everyone else seemed to take themselves too seriously. And then there was this one scene where it was after the first proposal. They're fighting with swords, and Lizzie cuts like Mr. Darcy's coat, and he has a shirt on under, so it's not that big of a deal. And then he cuts the first button off her dress, so like you can kind of see the top of her breast more. And I'm like, yeah, this was directed by a guy. And
It's also a zombie movie
it
intertwined
is.
with Pride and Prejudice. Who else would think of that besides a man?
You're
You
right.
know?
But at the same time, I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Like, no point during this Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 version, was I ever like, this was directed by a guy, I could tell.
Yeah.
Because it was just so well handled, It felt like, I hate to like hate men for a second, but it felt like a woman directed it, It
Well, I
just
mean,
felt,
it is a novel written by a woman,
I
you
know,
know?
but he just did such a good job with it that it felt like straight from her.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this movie felt like it just took a big dump on her book. Because it's supposed to be a woman's story, and here you see like women just like, hey, let's pop her boobs out, and then he fell on top of her and
Yeah.
like pinned her down. I'm like, what is going on? I hate this.
So a woman did write the screenplay.
Oh, she did.
And then the legend Emma Thompson is uncredited for additional dialogue, so she helped write the original script. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
IMDb helps.
Dang.
Yeah, she also wrote. Emma Thompson also wrote Sense and Sensibility, which was the first major, in like the modern film era to Jane Austen novel to be adapted, like since the 40s and 60s.
I still feel like this man, what was his name, Burr or something, had something to do with that scene. Because no way a woman wrote that.
Oh no, absolutely not. No. I'm saying a woman wrote the screenplay for the 2005 version.
Oh, I thought you were saying the zombie one.
No, not at all. I'm sure that was all men. Yeah.
Yeah.
On like the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice. Deborah,
Yeah. That makes a lot more
I don't want to butcher this. Mogak? Ooh, that did.
sense.
Mogak. Yeah, sure, something like that. But she wrote the screenplay for this, and then the director, was just,
You're right.
yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about the zombie one. I was like, there's no way. There's no way a woman was like, yeah, let's go take a dump on Pride and Prejudice. So, yeah. I did take notes during this movie. Yeah, I see the point where I go, ... Yeah, this movie was directed by a man.
Speaking of Joe Wright, he did one of the best Black Mirror episodes.
Oh, which one did you?
Nosedive.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Goodness gracious.
I know you guys couldn't see it, but Miles just literally punched me in the face.
I don't understand. Anywho, do you have anything else to add about Pride and Prejudice and zombies? I just saw it.
Yeah, I only watched it because I thought Miles was going to watch it. I was like, dang, I got to be in the know tonight, So,
I'm a bad guest this week.
You're okay. I literally fell asleep halfway through it. That says a lot.
That should tell you something about the quality of the movie then.
It should. Also, they made, like I said, Lady Catherine a good guy halfway through. I was like, what is this?
They
gave her an
go,
eye
yeah.
patch. It made her a baddie. I was like, okay, go get
Go
it.
off
I guess.
then, I guess, yeah.
But yeah, it was a movie that came out in 2016. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, it makes me really appreciate the 2005 version.
Absolutely.
More.
Do you want to wrap it up by saying anything about the 2005 version?
I just love it. I feel like I'm gonna rewatch it again sometime.
Well, of course, yeah.
It feels like a warm hug.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I love movies like that. There's a lot of movies. One that I'm suggesting for another episode, The Truman Show, is like a warm hug movie.
Gotcha.
In a strange way, but real comforting way, especially at the end of the movie.
We'll have to do that one next.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. All right, I'll put it on my list. But yeah, is there anything you wanted to add? I mean, I know I kind of went on a spiel.
Oh no. Yeah, I mean, I think this movie definitely resonates with you more than me. So that's cool. But I really enjoyed it. It's a good romantic novel. I mean, it's hard to knock Jane Austen. She's a absolute legend for a reason. And I mean that
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason these stories have been told multiple times, because they're that good.
Mm-hmm. It's It was good. I'm glad TikTok made me watch
Yeah,
this.
and now go watch Little Women and Sense and Sensibility
I will.
and Clueless.
I'm surprised. I'm so shocked. I've never seen Clueless all the way through. And there was another one that shocks a lot of people when I say I haven't seen all the way through because I feel like we've played it. Nightmare Before Christmas. Never watched all the way through. I just seen bits and parts.
Classic.
It is good. All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it for today. But yeah, I really like this movie. I highly recommend it. If I had to give it a score, I'd say I want to give it like a 9.8 out of 10. I don't feel like it's a 10 out of 10 because I know there's never going to be a 10 out of 10 movie. But
If we're going to rate movies, we need to establish like a
yeah.
baseline and a top end. But
Mhm.
I agree that it's a really good one. I would give it like a 7, just like arbitrarily, Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely some slow points. I mean, we don't have to get all back into it. I think
Yeah.
I've stated my opinion on the movie, but yeah, it's a good one. It's a fun one.
Yeah.
Go read Jane Austen.
I don't know if you're telling me or the
The
audience.
audience, yeah, everybody should read Jane Austen.
All right. Well, I'll see you next week, guys.
Peace.
Adios.